Hey, it's Stephen, and in this video I'll show you how you can convert your Knack pivot tables from something like this into something like this. As you can see, each grouping has its own level, an aggregation of the sum, subtotal down the right, and then a total down the bottom. Additionally, we can apply filters where we need to the data, as well as export the data out to CSV. In the CSV output, it looks very similar to how it does in Knack. It has indenting for each subgroup, as well as all our x-axis groupings, subtotal, and total down the bottom. So the way this function works is by transforming a grid view into a pivot format. And what we can do is nominate what fields we want to display, which could be fields from the table or connected fields, as well as nominate the fields that are going to be calculated, which don't necessarily have to be numerical. In our grid settings, we can do our sorts and filters as we like, as well as apply any field widths or alignments in the field settings. In our code, we see that we call the render grid as pivot function inside of a view render, and we nominate our y-axes, x-axes if you need it, and what our calculation values are going to be. So at the moment, this is going to be calculating a sum of the revenue field and grouping by region and salesperson, as well as year across the x-axis. And what it gives is a result that looks a little something like this that we saw before. If we don't want to show an x-axis, we can simply remove it, and we can apply that field in the y-axis instead if we like. And what you can see when you refresh is that it starts grouping it now by year, region, and then by salesperson with no x-axis anymore. So we might decide we want additional columns for calculations, so we can paste in as many in this value keys array as we want. This one's going to be a sum of a quantity, and this one's going to be a ratio of the revenue divided by the quantity to give us an average selling price. Now that this data's refreshed, we can see our three calculated columns along the right, and our average selling price is dividing the revenue over the quantity. We see here there's quite a lot of room in here, so let's go and add a table width, which is another optional parameter. And we're going to set this to auto so that it should then shrink to the size of the contents. And we can see that's a bit more readable. It's not taking up all of the page space, it's just shrunk it down into a nice readable format. So unlike Knack's native pivot tables, we can show an x-axis at the same time as showing multiple calculations. I'm going to remove the y-axis from here and reapply year as the x-axis, and let's see what we get. Now we can see along the top that we have our revenue grouped by year, then we have our quantities grouped by year, and finally our average selling price grouped by year. If we export that now to CSV, we'll see that our groupings of calculations are very similar to how they appear in Knack. So on top of our sum or ratio calculations, we can also use other standard ones like our counts, mins, maxes, averages. We can also use other additional ones such as unique counts, first or last found value, and a ratio percentage. In this example, I'll show you how we can convert this grid of data into a training matrix, which will show us our completions by course and employee. First, we'll adjust our completion date column to be 100 pixels wide and center aligned. We'll include a link to a details page, which allows us to view that record. And finally, we're going to sort by course, then employee, and then completion date from oldest to newest. Back in our code, we found our view key of view 30. We're going to render this grid as a pivot. We're specifying that our y-axes are the department and employee. Our x-axis is going to be our course. Our value keys will just be the completion date. We're going to specify that we're going to grab the last record. Additionally, we've got this parameter of link slug, which will take us to our child details page. So now that we've refreshed the page, you can see it's showing department and employee down on the left and our courses along on the right. Then we have a summary of all the last found records of the completion dates. And if we go click into one, it will then open up this modal page, which shows us a summary of that training record. So as you can see, this function serves a range of different use cases and can be customized in a number of different ways. And all you need to do to get started is follow the link below, follow the instructions, and you're on your way. Thanks for watching.